Hello, and welcome back to English Voyage Podcast. I wasn't planning to talk about discipline, success, or changing your life. Actually, this episode started because of something I found while cleaning my room. A small glass jar. It was sitting in the back of a drawer, covered with dust. I almost threw it away because I didn't remember why I had kept it. Then I picked it up. Inside the jar were tiny paper stars. Blue ones, yellow ones, white ones. Some were folded neatly. Others looked messy, as if someone had made them in a hurry. I sat on the floor for a long time, just looking at them. And then, little by little, I remembered. Years ago, during my last year of school, life felt heavy. Everyone around me seemed to know exactly what they wanted to do. Some were preparing for university. Some already had plans to study abroad. Others talked about their dream jobs with so much confidence. I didn't have that confidence. Most days, I felt like I was standing still while everyone else was moving forward. One evening, after another day of feeling that I wasn't doing enough, my teacher said something very simple. He smiled and said, "Don't try to win the whole year today. Just make today a little better than yesterday." At first, I almost laughed. It sounded too simple, too small. How could something like that make any real difference? But that night, before I went to bed, I folded a tiny paper star. Not because I had done something amazing. I folded it because I had studied English for 15 minutes. That was all. I put the star into the glass jar and went to sleep. The next day, I almost forgot about the jar. Then, just before bed, I saw it again. I thought, maybe I can earn another star. So I read 2 pages of a book. Another star. The day after that, I drank enough water instead of buying another soft drink. Another star. One day, I called my grandmother because I realized I hadn't talked to her for weeks. Another star. Some days, the only reason I deserved a star was because I didn't give up. Just one more star. If someone had opened that jar after a month, they probably wouldn't have been impressed. It was just a jar with a few pieces of folded paper. Nothing special. Nothing that looked like success. And I think that's the problem with small progress. From the outside, it doesn't look like progress at all. We celebrate big moments. A graduation. A new job.
A promotion.
Running a marathon. Speaking English fluently. But nobody celebrates the quiet evening when someone chooses to read one page instead of scrolling on their phone. Nobody takes a picture of the day someone finally decides to go to bed 30 minutes earlier. Nobody claps when someone practices 5 new English words. Those moments are almost invisible. But maybe those invisible moments are the ones that matter the most. A few years later, I realized something strange. When people asked me how I became more confident, I couldn't find one big answer. There wasn't one perfect morning. There wasn't one life-changing decision. There wasn't one magical book. Instead, my memory kept returning to those tiny paper stars. Because confidence didn't arrive all at once. It quietly grew while I wasn't paying attention. The same thing happened with my English. People sometimes say, "Your English is really good." What they don't see are the hundreds of ordinary days behind that sentence. The days when I only learned a few words. The days when I listened to one short podcast. The days when I wanted to stop, but didn't. Nobody remembers those days. But they built everything. I think many of us make the same mistake. We look at people who are successful and only notice the finish line. We don't see the mornings when they almost gave up. We don't see the small choices that nobody noticed. Imagine watching a movie where you only see the last 5 minutes. You would think everything happens so quickly. But real life doesn't work like that. Real life is slow. Sometimes so slow that you begin to think nothing is happening. And that's usually the moment people quit. Not because they aren't growing. Because they can't see the growth yet. There's a tree near my apartment. I walk past it almost every day. If you ask me whether it grew this week, I honestly couldn't tell you. It looks almost the same. But if I compare it to a photo from 3 years ago, it's completely different. Maybe we're like that tree. We expect to wake up and suddenly become stronger.
Kinder.
Braver. Better at English. More confident. But growth doesn't usually happen while we're looking at it. It happens quietly, day after day. Until one afternoon, someone who hasn't seen us in years says, You've changed. And we're surprised because we never noticed it ourselves. The funny thing is, that glass jar never made me work harder. It never pushed me. It never shouted at me. It simply reminded me that today was enough. Not perfect. Not extraordinary. Just enough. Looking back now, I don't think the paper stars changed my life. They changed the way I looked at one ordinary day. Instead of asking, how far am I from my dream? I started asking, what small thing can I do before today ends? That one question changed everything. Because dreams are heavy. One small step isn't. Sometimes we don't need a new plan. We don't need another motivational video. We don't need to wait for Monday. Maybe what we really need is something small enough that we can't make excuses anymore. One page. One walk. One conversation. One new English word. One honest apology. One glass of water. One quiet moment without looking at our phones. These things don't look important. Until one day, we realize they quietly became our life. I still have that little glass jar. It's sitting on a shelf now. I don't put paper stars into it anymore. I don't need to, because every time I see it, I remember something that took me years to understand. Big changes are rarely loud. They don't knock on your door one morning and announce that your life is different now. They arrive quietly. They hide inside ordinary Tuesdays. Inside 5-minute decisions. Inside small promises that nobody else even knows you're keeping. And maybe that's why we miss them. We're looking for fireworks, while life is slowly changing us like the sunrise. You never see the sun jump into the sky, but somehow, morning always comes. Thank you for spending this time with me today. If there's one thing I'd love for you to remember after this episode, it isn't the paper stars. It's this. When you wake up tomorrow, don't ask yourself how to change your whole life. Just ask, what is one small promise I can keep today? Maybe that's how every big change begins. One quiet promise. One ordinary day. One small step. Thank you for listening to English Voyage Podcast. Take care of yourself, keep learning, and I'll see you in the next episode.
Goodbye.